Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome, friends and guests who took the time to join us in this virtual launch of Journey of Culture Through Objects, the Philippine collection at the Linden Museum in Stuttgart. I am Mr. Anton Miranda from the Center of International Relations and Strategic Studies of the Foreign Service Institute, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today. We celebrate the findings of an important research that certainly adds not only to the body of knowledge in cultural studies, but also in strengthening the bilateral cultural relations of the Philippines and Germany. We also celebrate humanity's enduring love for the printed word. This is the reason why we scheduled this virtual launch during the ongoing Frankfurt Book Fair, the world's largest annual book fair. This book fair is proof that printed publications will always have its niche and special place, even in a world that has gone digital. We formally start our program with the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, kaya sa sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit kong pagaw, ay ginatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagkikinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay magtitigil. Luman ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good Culture Journey, Dr. Stephanie Marie Koo has explained this in her research on the Philippine artifacts found in the Linden Museum in Stuttgart, Germany. Friends and guests, may we present to you the context of this research undertaking. Let us now listen to the leaders of the Philippine Consulate General in Frankfurt and the Foreign Service Institute as they explain why this research project is worth supporting. Friends and guests, let us welcome Consul General Evelyn D. Austria Garcia to be followed by Director General Jose Maria A. Carino.
Guten Tag. Good day everyone. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. It is a great pleasure to hold this virtual launch of the publication of the booklet on the final report of the research work of Professor Stephanie Marie Koo entitled Rediscovering Philippine Material Culture in German Archives. On behalf of the Philippine Consulate General in Frankfurt, allow me to extend our congratulations to Professor Ku for the completion of this significant research which document Philippine realia in German institutions. I wish to convey as well our deepest appreciation to Deputy Speaker Loren Legarda, who was instrumental in providing financial support for the research project. I also wish to thank the Department of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Service Institute, led by Director General Jose Maria Carino, Linden Museum in Stuttgart, Rautenstrach Jost Museum in Cologne, and Volkerkunde Museum, VPST, in Heidelberg, Germany, and all the people and organizations that contributed to this project. Through your support and engagement, you have all contributed in enriching the wider society with new knowledge and information. When Professor Ku approached the consulate and offered her services to undertake this project, I had no hesitation that this will contribute to the exchange of knowledge, methods, and promote cultural relations between the Philippines and Germany. In bringing together museum experts, professors, researchers, and students, and through the exchange of new ideas and fresh perspectives, this project opened up meaningful opportunities of utilizing Philippine collections in German repositories. This is just the first phase of the project. With sufficient resources, the consulate hopes that Professor Ku could continue to yield significant research data and publish a full-fledged book providing context to the Philippine collections found in German ethnographic museums. Rest assured that the consulate will continue to support Filipino researchers like Professor Ku and undertake pioneering cooperation projects such as this, which could greatly contribute in deepening the cultural links and people-to-people ties between the Philippines and Germany. Mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
Friends, ladies and gentlemen, the request for support to publish Professor Ku's initial research findings was one of the very first documents that I came across on my desk when I joined the Foreign Service Institute as its new Director General. It was not difficult to say yes, because the project dovetails perfectly with the four critical areas that need attention at the FSI. Let me tell you my priorities at FSI. Number one, to clean up the whole place, renovate, refurbish, redecorate, and modernize the entire FSI's premises, including the purchase of new computers. Number two, I want to rebrand and change FSI's image. Number three, streamline its operations, review the present training programs, and implement new ones that are relevant for our country and relevant to the times. One of the most important projects, number four, is to create a modern language laboratory with survival online language courses in comfortable private booths with modern equipment. But most importantly, I want to publish books that focus on cultural diplomacy, specifically to promote Philippine culture and arts. I have always believed that the country's art and culture are reflections of our soul and identity. Professor Ku's ongoing research project, which is sponsored by the Frankfurt Consulate General and the Office of Deputy Speaker Loren Legarda, enriches the body of knowledge in Philippine iconographic and material artifacts. But more than this, we support these projects because it lays the foundation for a systematic tracking, identifying, and documenting Philippine artifacts, manuscripts, and artworks kept in public and private collections all over the world. Congratulations, Professor Ku, for a job well done. Thank you too to Frankfurt PCG for this opportunity to partner with you in this publication project. Thank you everyone for joining our virtual launch today, and I am very certain that we will all learn and enjoy the lecture of Professor Ku. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul General Austria Garcia and Director General Carino. From her productive years in the media and all through her remarkable years as a legislator, this leader has been a steady figure in advocating Philippine culture. It is therefore no surprise that she also supported Dr. Ku's research. Friends and guests, the Deputy Speaker of the Philippine House of Representatives, Honorable Loren Legarda.
My warmest congratulations to Dr. Stephanie Ku for carrying out the daunting task of studying Philippine historical objects in select German archives. This first phase of Dr. Ku's research drew out compelling stories from the assembly of objects, images, documents, personal letters, and other records obtained from the Linden Museum in Stuttgart, Germany, and generated collaborative dialogues on the future study and presentation of Philippine collections in foreign repositories. Indeed, the Philippine collections at the Linden Museum in Stuttgart have enormous intellectual, historical, and publication value. The personal letters, when combined with period photographs and images of artifacts, can be presented in a visually rich, scholarly book. English translations of the letters can be published alongside the German originals. Readers can also appreciate the aesthetic value of letterheads, which establish formal connections with, among others, the King of Württemberg, the German Reich, and the United States War Department. Equally, the labels attached to objects also serve as examples of 19th century German calligraphy and connect artifacts with both collectors and the collecting institutions. As such, I'm glad, honored to have supported this research of Dr. Ku, which was brought to my attention a few years ago and which was funded during my stint as then chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance through the support of the Department of Foreign Affairs. This also calls attention to the lesser-known German-US colonial cooperation and competition over the Philippines. Ultimately, researches such as these serve as a macro context of Philippine collections that have never been studied before and thus worth looking into. This interesting and original subject thus deserves to be published to do justice to our beautiful Philippine culture, history, and artifacts. May this be the first among many initiatives that will further enrich public discourse on the different segments of our history, culture, and heritage.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Legarda. Friends and guests, it is a privilege to introduce our multi-awarded academic and author of the research we are celebrating today. Dr. Stephanie Marie Ku is the award-winning author of Clothing the Colony, 19th Century Philippine Sartorial Culture, 1820 to 1896, which recently received the International Institute for Asian Studies International Convention of Asia Scholars International Book Prize 2021 as the Best Book in Humanities English Language Edition. Currently, she is a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow at the Universidad de Granada in Spain and Nova School of Law, Universidad Nova de Lisboa in Portugal. She obtained her PhD in History, Tres Honorable avec Félicitations, from Université Nice Sophie Antipolis in France, Master of Arts in History, and Bachelor of Science in Management from the Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines. She holds an assistant professorship at the Department of History of the Ateneo de Manila University, where she served as chair of the Internationalization Committee and coordinator for internationalization between 2018 and 2019. Born and raised in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, and educated in Manila, Beijing, and Nice, Dr. Koo is a Chinese-Filipino Ilongga currently living in Lisbon. Friends and guests, Dr. Stephanie Marie Koo.
Hi everyone, I'd like to share with you the results of my research in the German archives. This explores the Philippine collection at the Linden Museum in Stuttgart. This really unravels the journey of cultural objects from the Philippines to the St. Louis Exposition in 1904 in the United States before finally reaching the Kingdom of Württemberg, particularly Stuttgart in Germany. As you know, cultural objects travel not only with people but also with narratives. So I will share with you the exciting things that I found. There are different types of records, particularly textual, visual, material, and combination sources. Combination, for example, would include the item lists with the attached images and objects. This really focuses on the Linden-Niederlein correspondences. They were a series of letters exchanged between Count von Linden and Dr. Gustav Niederlein. Count von Linden represents the collecting institution, while Dr. Gustav Niederlein represents the collector-donor. Dr. Niederlein was invited by Secretary of War William Howard Taft to work as director of exhibits for the St. Louis World Fair, for the Philippine exhibition at the St. Louis World Fair. He was tasked to travel to the Philippines and collect an assembly of objects that will be exhibited. Count von Linden was the president of the Württemberg Association for Commercial Geography. He collected objects of world culture, which would later on be exhibited in the Museum of Ethnology. The primary purpose of this was to collect objects which will give insights to life overseas. These are particularly for those who are interested to work in the colonies. The Linden Museum now stands in Stuttgart. What was previously the Württemberg Association for Commercial Geography would become the Museum of Ethnology, and when after the death of Count von Linden, the museum would be named after him. What's interesting is that it was under the protectorate of the king, and at the time Germany had the German Empire between 1871 to 1918 had four kingdoms: the Kingdom of Prussia, the Kingdom of Saxony, Bavaria, and Württemberg. Dr. Niederlein was from Saxony, and he made a donation to the Kingdom of Württemberg, hoping that the king would intervene for him, perhaps by giving him either awards, medals, or even a position in the German Second Reich. What is interesting also is the dynamics of the exchange of what those letters reveal, what were his expectations in return for the donations that he made. While he was collecting for the U.S. government, he also assembled a good combination of objects for his personal collection. It is his personal collection that Niederlein donated to Count von Linden. The donation included around 5 boxes of ethnological objects. Okay? This one is what's interesting also are the letterheads. No? So this one from the Chief of Cabinet of the King of Württemberg. There were several key events and key figures to help us understand the correspondences as well as the attached objects. Key events is sort of like a prehistory that led up to the St. Louis Exposition. One was the unification of Germany and the rise of the German Empire, or the Second Reich, between 1871 to 1918. Then we have the Berlin Conference, which allowed Germany to acquire its first overseas colonies. That was in 1884 and 1885. Then we have the U.S. colonization of the Philippines, of course, and then the St. Louis World Fair in 1904. There were several key figures. I will only show you photographs of 4. For the German side, we have Emperor Wilhelm II and the Emperor of the German Empire, and we have King Frederick I of Württemberg. For the side of the Americans, we have President Theodore Roosevelt, who asked Congress for a budget to explore the Philippines. And Secretary of War William Howard Taft was the one who invited Dr. Niederlein to collect objects for the Philippine exhibition at the St. Louis World Fair. And this information was verified to the circular of Governor Taft, which set out the guidelines for the preparation of the 1904 St. Louis World Fair. And here we can confirm the identity of Dr. Niederlein as well as his formal involvement in the exhibition. The daily official program also looks into what were the objects that were shown, the day-to-day events and some of the characters as well. What is interesting is that at some point, the objects that Niederlein sent were lost. So here, before we continue, we have on the left, upper left, this is the letterhead of the letter that Dr. Gustav Niederlein sent to Count von Linden. And here he was writing it using the letterhead of the Philippine Government Board in the United States for the Louisiana Purchase Exposition. And here you can see Hergraft, which refers to Count. Some of the objects that were from the St. Louis World Fair that found its way to Stuttgart had labeled Philippine Islands. As mentioned, the ones that Niederlein donated were his personal collection. But of course, if there were double items, they would trade, for example, with other collectors. After the exhibit closed in 1904, by the way, the St. Louis World Fair ran from April to December, and after the exhibition closed, the objects, the state collection that Dr. Niederlein assembled were distributed to the various museums in the United States. Please bear in mind, the one he gave to the to the Kingdom of Württemberg was mainly from his own personal collection. The objects now would be labeled Niederlein if it came from him. There were other collectors as well, but we'll focus on this. And this is the item list of the objects that Dr. Niederlein donated to Count von Linden. As mentioned, at some point, the 5 boxes went missing for months, and they were trying to figure out where he went, and that's what we will be including in the book also. At some point, there was Count von Linden was petrified that the objects could be missing, and for him, they're of significant scientific value. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of really looking at the objects or handling them. For example, this bakya, or these sandals worn typically by women, wooden one. No? It's important that we look at it up close because exhibition objects meant that they were not worn. And this one, what gives it the left or right is the shape of the feet, the constant wearing. And if you look at it closely, since these were for exhibition, there's no left or right. The left is the same as the right. So it's the constant wear that gives it shape. No? It's also labeled quite well. For example, here it's Philippinen, but here you can see that these are just working photographs I used for research. And many of the collections were not also from the lowland Christianized. The lowland Christianized apparel and objects were considered too Western. So many of the collections were from the indigenous tribes or the highland tribes of the Philippines. So this one, I wanted to show you this because it has beetle wings. So there's the link between animals and humans, and how animal like feathers find its way into Philippine cultural ethnological objects. Some are also labeled as poisonous. So, for example, weapons and objects used for war. So these things had to be handled carefully. The book that we will be publishing, so this is a virtual launch of the booklet, but I'm in the process of writing a book, and it will include the original correspondences in German, interspersed with the English translations. And of course, there will be images of the objects, also images of the photographs also that of the St. Louis World Fair, etc. So thank you very much. This is just a brief introduction as to the kind of work that we are doing. So if you have any questions, please email me at escu@ateneo.edu. And I'd like to thank the Philippine Consulate General in Frankfurt, the Office of the Deputy Speaker, Lauren Legarda, and of course the Foreign Service Institute for giving me this opportunity to publish and share my work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Koo. We are sure that the fresh interest in studying Philippine cultural artifacts abroad is stirred among our viewers. How we wish that we could have a real-time interaction for some questions. Nonetheless, Dr. Koo and our colleagues from the Frankfurt PCG shall be waiting for your comments or questions on our Facebook comments section and shall reply accordingly. Thank you once again for joining us today. It has been a pleasure to spend the past hours learning more about our cultural artifacts. Thank you from the Philippine Consulate General in Frankfurt and the Foreign Service Institute. Mabuhay!